Okay, it is now 1 o'clock. Our minister is going to take a deep breath, and then he will lead us in the opening prayer.
Let's take a deep breath together. We know right where we are, God is. God, we open ourselves. We open ourselves to new direction, new guidance. We open ourselves to all the ways in which we are being led for the highest and best of Unity Church of Hawaii. And we give thanks, and so it is. Amen.
Thank you so much. We're taking things a little bit out of order this time because we're having presentations and some of the presenters wanted to get in and out early. The first will be, and this is because we had these two people come to present to the board, and we said, this is such exciting news, we really need to have more people hear about this. So we're first going to hear from David Tasaka about the efforts that he would like to make through our church to market Unity Church of Hawaii. David?
Thank you. For those of you who know me, I'm David Tasaka. I've been coming to Unity since 1977. I've known all the ministers since then. They were the good, the bad, and the beautiful. I have done classes here, and my greatest connection here was with Reverend Sky St. John. I knew him in a previous lifetime when he was a musician and I was a booking agent. And when he came on board, the church was at one of the lowest points. They had like 125 people. The church, we were on probation because we had gone through 5 ministers in 5 years. So I said, so I said, Sky, if you want, I'll come and help you with marketing. So I said, of course, Dave, come help. So I started initially, and then he had an agenda of what he wanted me to do. So I said, sheesh, this is a lot of things. I thought I would just volunteer occasionally, but he wanted like weekly things done. So I said, I need some kind of compensation, so I'm committed to it and not just throw it on the back. He said, well, that's no problem. I'll approve it, because it was just like a stipend. But during his time here at Unity, from the 125 members, we were able to grow it to almost 750. We implemented a lot of programs. I was sending in press releases every week. We had innovative events, and everything was clicking along. During that time, the major thing that happened for me to learn about church marketing was there was a church that started in 1997. They had their first meeting at Stevenson Elementary with 75 people. By 2005, this church had grown to what they claimed was 50,000 members. So when they opened the invitation to all churches to come and see how they did church, I asked the board if they would approve for me to go, and Sky pushed for it. And when I went, it was a 3-day thing. They opened everything. They were the high-tech church. The name you probably know was New Hope Christian Fellowship. They were so ahead of the curve, I could see why they were able to grow their church as quickly as they do. The key was several things. Number one, they embraced high technology early on. They were one of the first churches to do live streaming of their services. I shared with the board that in the year after they started the service, they had 2,000 online members, and they were very sophisticated. You could ask for prayer for their online ministers, and they could put you in a private chat room to pray with you. the big thing for this was that they were able to have an income from their online 2,000 members of $400,000 in 1 year. So I said, this is big. The other thing they embraced was fellowship for their church. People came from all over, all ages. So Reverend Wayne Cordero said, if you're interested in anything, come to me and I will create a ministry for that. So what they had was a bowling ministry, a biking ministry, hiking ministry, cooking ministry, dine out ministry. They had about 35 ministries, everything from Bible study to cooking to swimming, because what they wanted to do was really embrace a person's life. The church then became the focus of this kind of thing, so they brought their friends and everything, and it snowballed. I feel very grateful to Reverend Tim for allowing me to meet with him several times. We've talked a lot about these ideas, and I told the board when I met with them, they were also gracious to hear me. I'm here by divine guidance because I got what I call universal downloads to show up and help this church, pro bono. It's my way of paying it forward. And their big thing was, I found that unless a church is growing at a certain level, they're dying. And this church is very vulnerable because of several reasons. One of the biggest ones is we have a congregation that's aging. The average age of a congregant here, in my informal assessment, is 50 and over. Many of them are 60 and over, which means that unless you find a way to replenish this population with younger people, the church may just fade away. So to do this, what I've been assessing and investigating is, what kind of things do congregants look for in a church? And one of my big recommendations was to have a demographic survey of current members. One of my friends is Sister Joan Chatfield, who has a PhD in social statistics from Berkeley. I haven't asked her yet, but I'm going to twist her arm to create the survey, because number one, you need to know who's coming to your church right now. Number two, what do they want? Because right now, we're giving them what we think they like, but that may be incorrect. So I recommended a demographic survey, make it real easy, online, via mail, whatever it takes, so at least you have some raw data to see what do people look for in a church. And one of the things you may want to ask is, if you're no longer attending, what made you leave? Because the big thing that New Hope had, they did all of this. They had a minister who created software for churches. He left the ministry. And they did a survey of people who left a church within 1 year of starting to attend. Guess what the number one reason for leaving was? Number one reason for people leaving a church was unable to make friends. And that would make sense, because church for them was important. They came probably to make friends. If they couldn't make friends, they left. So I shared with the board and with Reverend Tim, there needs to be a focus on fellowship so that new people, transplants from the mainland, a lot of, I would say, your congregants came from the mainland. They may not have family here. The church is their family. So things like Thanksgiving. Let's have a Thanksgiving gathering for all the people who don't have families or don't have connection, so that the church becomes the core support for their family. The other thing is to encourage people to come with events that may not be church-focused. These are what I call practical presentations. One of my clients is Abe Lee, who owns a real estate company. He's a developer and everything. He's written a book called How to Become a First-Time Homebuyer. And I thought that might be something interesting to bring younger people in for something that may not be church-focused, but to just bring them on the property, and then when they're here, then we can do our pitch, but get them in the door. And I've already checked with Abe. He said he'd be happy to give a 1-hour presentation. He's written 2 books. And so one of the books is How to Become a First-Time Homebuyer. So I'm reaching out to people that I know that give practical advice that would be very enriching for the community to promote. Like, it would be hard to promote a prayer service on the morning news. But if we're doing something like How to Become a First-Time Homebuyer, I could do press releases for that. It wouldn't be a conflict of interest because it's a community service. I've already explored things like, did you know that the fire department has an education department, how to have fire safety in your home, especially in condos, like how to use a fire extinguisher? Do you know that where your exits are? They have a whole team that comes out, but you never hear about it because a lot of people don't know. The police department has a pedestrian safety team that will come. As long as you have 10 or more people, they will come and do the presentation. And I thought, these are low-hanging fruit where you can get certified people to come and give community interest classes here, to just bring them in and to become a sort of center for community service. From there, then you need to kind of engage with them. And also, I think with the demographic survey, you'll see what people are interested in and get their ideas as to what they think would help grow the church. So I'm working with Reverend Tim, with the board, to help them grow the church, because I feel that this is sort of my way of paying it forward, and also to help people find a home, because a lot of people are looking for a home for all kinds of reasons. And I think these ideas are creative, but I think it will help with church growth. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for David before he goes? We'll need another microphone.
Do I push a button? Hello? Is it on? Yes. Oh, okay. First off, I just want to thank you. I am so excited you're here. I mean, this is just, I get so excited. I'm like off the charts, over the moon. I wanted to just very quickly share a suggestion for your consideration. Years ago, the National HR Association was in decline because everybody was old. There were no young people. And they came up, they did the same thing you're doing. They came up with an idea of what they called a college bowl. And it became, like on TV. And they got young people interested in joining the HR profession. And it started infusing youth into the organization, and it turned it completely around. So I was wondering if we could have something like a Unity Bowl, where we could maybe inspire young people to come and learn about unity. And as somebody who is over 60 and I don't run anymore, I sure hope you start a bowling league, because I think that'd be great. So thank you for being here.
Well, I know that Reverend Sky and the board is open to any and all ideas, because we're looking for creative ideas. Reverend Tim. I'm sorry. Senior moment. I apologize. But we're just in the initial phases of it. I'm doing research now there are two what I call mega churches for Unity that I know of. One is Unity of Houston, the other is Unity of Phoenix. They each have about 2,000 attendees each Sunday. So I thought, since they're Unity churches already, what kind of things have they done within the context of Unity churches that have appealed to their congregants? The one thing I see, both of them have a very active singles group, because I think a lot of Unity people, even in our church, may be single. They have a lot of events, social events, like the Singles Club goes out to breakfast, brunch, off property. So they have their own special time together. So little things like that. No need to reinvent the wheel. We can learn from them. I'm sure that if I called their church and asked them, what is your most popular things? How did you set it up? They'd be happy to share. So that will be part of my research. So I'm coming from some basis for large Unity churches that can share with us, be willing to share. I'm sure Reverend Tim would help me with this. So that we're not starting at ground zero. They can say, oh, we tried that, but this is better. And I would say that's a good way to get traction right away.
Okay,
Any
I wasn't
other
sure it was on, but I too would like to thank you for being here also, because I initially, started the walking group. I don't know if you're familiar with that, and it kind of fell to the wayside. When we first started, we had tons of people coming out, but then it just kind of went down to like every week 0. And we even started after the 9 o'clock service walk as well. So I feel like with some kind of marketing plan that you were talking about, because I feel like most people want to be healthy and do some form of exercise. So even if it's looked at where I was at a church, as an example, where they actually had like a gymnasium area. They had exercise classes and things like that. And I want to say they charge a nominal fee. But that's something that, that interests me, and I don't know if we want to take a look at something like that, expanding it, whereby there's like exercise classes or something. And I'd be happy to help with the,
Here's what I
putting it
found.
together.
Thank you. Here's what I found. If the head supports the process, the body will follow. And anyone who has an idea, I'm sure if they presented it, there probably is a channel to do that, a protocol, and then it can be reviewed. But once there's buy-in, there should be support, because you're not flying solo all by yourself responsible for everything. And I can help with that too.
My name is Catherine Burton, and I wanted David to see how I can connect with you. I volunteer at Friends of the Library, and I have about 6 books on the research, George Barna and other people who have done research on growing the church, things. I want to give those books for you to look at if you haven't already. So if I could somehow figure out how we could connect.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure that if you come to church, drop in an office, I can pick it up here. Okay. Any other question?
Okay. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Getting us all fired up. I think you all know I'm a huge believer in our congregation. And, one of my mantras is, we can't compete with Oprah necessarily in front of the camera because she can draw from the talent all over the world, but she can't compete with us in the pews. So I think that's really the whole idea of what Tim mentioned, the escort service, the fellowship. He gives a message that gets them here. They see him, they come. But then we have to pick it up from there and incubate them, just like you would a seedling, right? You have to incubate the seed that he plants so that we're working this together. Okay. Now, with that, shall we go on to the next presentation? Would you like to do that? Okay, now we're going to do the presentation that we heard on transforming, or augmenting, I should say, augmenting Unity Church of Hawaii and making it a retreat center. And okay, go ahead. Do you have your, oh, you're going to need this, okay.
All right, and I need to make a phone call to Suzanne Sims. Suzanne is probably watching us, and so pardon me while I call her up. Okay, I'm calling her. We'll see if we get her. And I'll explain this. Hey, Suzanne, how are you?
Good. Everything's a little delayed here. You're still dialing me, but I'm talking to you, so that's kind of a miracle.
And well, I believe in miracles. That's what we talked about today. So even though I'm still dialing you, we're already talking. And little delay between here and Lake Tahoe. But anyway, I'm going to be giving this presentation. I don't know if you have time to just hang on the phone, if there's any questions or whatever. Is that how you'd like for us to proceed?
Why don't you, would you do this? I'll watch it and then you call me back when it comes time to questions, or do you want to just take them as they happen?
Okay, I'll give the presentation and then I'll call you back. Okay?
That sounds great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mahalo. All right. Bye. Okay. All right. Suzanne Sims developed a retreat center on the Big Island, built a retreat center, has done multiple things that qualify her in leading retreats. And she had heard that part of my mission, or vision rather, part of my vision was seeing this as a retreat center, or developing a retreat center here, where people would come from the mainland, where they would come from the islands, where they would come from other countries, and we would host retreats. Do we have a clicker, or? Okay, so let's see the first slide. And if we could dim the lights up here a little bit. Okay, it's here. Okay, so Unity Church of Hawaii Retreat Center, and here's a proposal that comes from Suzanne Sims. So first of all, why Unity of Hawaii Retreats? Well, one is we have an amazing location, right? I mean, what better place to pick for a retreat center than here? Secondly, the Hawaiian culture, the hospitality here, the campus and staff. You know, we have a wellness center here. We have a counseling center. So for years, I've thought about having, what would it be like to develop a retreat center, and what would I want in it? Oh, let's see. I'd want some kind of wellness center to help people physically. Let's see. I'd want a counseling center to help people emotionally. What else, you know? And a lot of those things that I would think of are right here. So this is a perfect place to do it. The largest New Thought center in this area. And we have such a large number of people who watch us online. We have a large, I'm blanking out on the term, virtual. We have a large virtual congregation. And thank you for watching us. And so this is a way that they could come for maybe a week-long experience or something and have an intensive here. It would also be an opportunity for them to visit the church. So combining unity principles, aloha spirit, Hawaiian culture. And if we could flip to the next one, please. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Opportunity to strengthen bonds and relationships. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's a piece of this too. Income. So, looking at this as an income stream as well. So, first and foremost, being mission-centric and seeing that this could be a way to reach people with unity principles and to build our connections with them. And secondarily, it can be a way for us to make income for the church. Okay, the next slide. And thank you, Diane. So the type of people that this might appeal to are online members, other Unity members in other parts of the world or on the mainland, independent travelers. I mean, this would be a great place, right? To come for a retreat. Yeah. And let's see, ministers, LUTs, Unity authors. We can do this cooperatively with other spiritual organizations, church organizations. We could collaborate with Unity Village or with SEE classes or with various types of classes. The types of retreats, it can involve senior ministers or board retreats, retreats with local congregants here on the island. It could be people, did Sandra just go out to talk to him? It could be a way for people on other parts of the island to come here. Or we might have retreats for our people right here and go to other parts of the island to experience a retreat experience together. Can we go to the next one? Thank you. So the retreat ministry team would be made up of a host, a development coordinator, a marketing assistant, wellness practitioners, other additional teachers and events. So the host would often be the senior minister or, part of the leadership here at the church. Development coordinator. Suzanne Sims, as I was saying, and I have some of her vitae up here, if I could find it, but she has excellent qualifications to be leading this, and she is proposing that she do this. Pardon me while I flip the pages. She is proposing to do this not on a salary basis, but on a percentage basis, or percentage of what is brought in after expenses. She has 10 years experience in organizing and managing spiritual, educational, health, and wellness retreats. She's the author of Healing Vacations in Hawaii, and I have seen that book, and it's a wonderful resource for healing retreat centers. Let's see. So sample program, are we able to see any of that, Diane? Okay, sample program. So hosted by the senior minister or visiting leader, a 5-day, 6-night retreat in paradise, focusing on inner renewal, relaxation, spiritual growth. So there could be educational programs, a Saturday welcome event, Sunday service, and Wednesday meditations services, accommodations. Airport, now these are the things that would be covered. Everything is covered except for the airline, the travel. But everything else is covered in their price for the retreat, okay? Airport transfers, meals, wellness center, tours. Is there another slide, Diane?
Tours and activities,
Guest lectures.
and lecture and teaching theme to be developed by host minister or
Right. So we would develop different kinds of themes. And if we could, actually, I should have those keynotes right in front of me here so that I can be looking at these. Okay, the next page, or next. Okay, so here's estimated costs. All right, now this is all proposal, so this is something we'll be working towards and wanted you to be aware of it. But estimated costs, $1,650 is the estimate for the hard costs. Suggest retreat pricing is $2,250. And that would include accommodations, double occupancy, van transport, meals, airport transfers, wellness treatment, all these various things that you can see. Okay? All right, thank you. If we could flip to the next slide, please. Oh, and is incentive at the bottom of this one?
yes, but it's dropping off the slide.
Right. Okay, so the incentive for group leaders coming from outside of Hawaii, what Suzanne is suggesting is with a minimum of enrollment of 15 people, that all elements of the retreat would be provided for the leader. So they would basically have the retreat for free. Pardon me, we just landed yesterday. So I'm rushing to put everything together here. So let's see, is there one more slide? The working calendar. Is it up here? Here we are. Thank you. And let's give a hand to Diane. She does so much. Thank you. Okay, so here's a suggested or proposed working calendar. June of 2018, which is where we're at, right? Questions, details, approvals needed, going through the preliminary calendar. July, begin creating programs, marketing materials, strategy. The website, looking at other media to work with. And by the way, Suzanne would oversee the whole program. So she would oversee the accommodations, the arrangements, making all those arrangements. And she's a wonderful person to work with. So, and then our media person, Johanna Kelly, would be involved in the social media, the marketing. August, outreach to retreat leaders. September and October, Suzanne is going to be in Assisi, Italy, but continue to promote the concept and outreach. November, early registration deadlines. December, final registrations. Looking at starting the actual programs starting in January of 2019. So there's a whole lot more details. I have them up here. There's a whole lot more details. But let me call Suzanne back and see if there's any questions that you have for us. Can we get printouts of these slides, Diane? I mean, for. Okay, yeah. Yeah, sure.
I think we can do much more easily is that Suzanne gave us the full proposal, so we already have that in electronic copy. So
Oh,
I
that'd
can
be
either
easier.
forward that to you or print it off to you if you want to see me afterwards. I can get your email address, and that way you've got everything, including the detail.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I probably have one you can look at. Is it this one? Yeah. All right. You're running. Look at her go. Wow. Good grief. That's amazing. I believe in miracles. Okay. Well, I thought about it.
Hi there.
Hey, you're with us. Okay. Did you see the presentation? You probably saw. Good. You probably saw all the things I left out, but it's a great proposal. So now I'm going to open it up for questions. Okay. All right. Okay. Anyone have questions for Suzanne or for me? Yes, Tony. Can we get a microphone to Tony? Right here in front. Right here.
Morning, everybody. I'm not 100% clear on, I think you said 15,
Yeah.
I think you said 15 people needed to sign up. How many people need to support this for it to be viable?
Could you hear that, Suzanne?
Yes. Every retreat gets priced out differently, so the estimates that you're seeing on the screen there are really just estimates, but basically the 15 would allow us to be compensated for our work. That's a really good question. I think 10 might be like a break even, and 15 would actually allow us to be compensated. So the other thing that Reverend Tim, when we talk about the incentives for the retreat leader, they both receive the full cost of the retreat and all of the aspects of the retreat, as well as their airfare. Oh. Once they hit 15, they get that.
Wow.
When they go beyond 15, when they go from 15 all the way up to 24, then they will, per participant, they will receive a bonus, and that can be up to $2,000 for them to bring in 24 people. Wow. So we try to incentives work so that they can get the minimum of 15, and then they can go from there and go up to 24.
Did you all hear that? Yep. We have some noise in the background.
Okay. Maybe I'll turn my speaker off.
That's okay.
Is that better?
No, we have noise on our end.
Oh, okay.
But you all can hear? Yeah, we can hear. Good. Okay. Does that answer?
Okay.
It's individual, is that what I heard? It's individual according to whatever the seminar is.
So it's.
Could you repeat the question?
Go ahead and hold the mic.
It's different numbers for whatever's being offered, is that correct?
She said it.
I can't. Mm-hmm.
What she asked is, so it's different numbers for each individual event then? That's what Tony's asking.
No, we would try to stay with the same formula. And I'm just saying that when it comes to pricing, if somebody, the way that this would work, for example, is we would be promoting the concept. Let's say we're going to promote the concept to ministers outside of Hawaii. For example, David mentioned Unity of Houston and Unity of Phoenix having 2,000 plus members. To me, that would be two of the churches that we would want to, perhaps talk to. Another example of people we'd want to speak to and talk to them about developing a retreat program would be ministers who have a connection with Hawaii already. So these could be people like former ministers David and Donna McClure, or somebody like those that went through training at Unity Hawaii, such as James Buchanan, who now has a church in Dallas. People who have a connection to Hawaii are very interested in, bringing their groups back here. So when we speak with them, we would price out the retreat with them with some ideas in mind of things that they might want to include specifically, and then we would have the pricing set. But generally, yes, I would say a good number to shoot for is 15 for your minimum and 24 for your maximum. And some of those numbers are determined because we are renting vans, for example, that will transport 15 participants. And a lot of these numbers just kind of, the financials kind of dictate the minimums you want to have. And but you do have to, it's like an organic thing. You have to kind of stay on top of it with registrations like you would with anything, and just continue to massage the numbers and figure out, can you do this with 13 or 14? But, the incentives are built in for 15 up to 24.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah, it just seems to me, this is Tony again, Suzanne. It just seems to me, though, that the ticket is high enough per individual that you have to have a really huge base to draw from. And I think you covered that answer by saying that different churches throughout the U.S. will participate.
All right, can you repeat that, please?
Tony was basically saying that there has to be a huge base to draw from. And yeah, we're looking at the entire world.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Catherine has her hand up. Morris has his hand up. Ricky has her hand up.
I'll make this quick. One thing, of course, you could draw upon is SEE intensives like we're having. And that would allow maybe, the question on that one is, and then I have another statement, different individuals from around the United States, if you had 15 of them wanting to come and take an SEE intensive here, would that count? That's the first question. And the second is, I happened to be talking to Gary Kanye yesterday. I didn't know you were doing this presentation. Just to clarify, what you said, obviously, was true, that people could take SEE classes anywhere. But what I had, there was something that said, but they can't take LUT in both the mainland or here. You choose one or the other of where you take the LUT, I think, so that they don't compete. He said they're speaking, he told me that yesterday. He said they didn't want to compete between taking the leadership, and they might be in discussion, but I just wanted to say that. So the question would be, if you offered an SEE intensive, could 15 people from different places end up coming?
Did you hear that, Suzanne?
I did, yes. Okay, so one of the things that's in the proposal, I wasn't sure who asked to see the full proposal, but one of the things that's in the proposal there are probably 7 or 8 different types of retreats that we can actually offer. I just highlighted the one, which is ministers who have congregations outside of Hawaii that want to come here. Another is that we just put a general package together for anybody in the Unity world, or anyone who stumbles even across our webpage and says, hey, there's a retreat going on in Hawaii. I'd like to come to that. So yes, that type of retreat could be just for the 15 individuals who come from diverse locations. There's so many different ways to approach this, and I think one of the things mentioned in the proposal is that we do 2 or 3 next year, and we test which one of those and do a variety of types and test which of them really functions best and how it operates. And then the following year we go on and we double that. So it's kind of like a beta testing to begin with, and then we continue to develop it from there. There are also many other spiritual organizations or even individual group leaders outside of the Unity Church itself, but people that have a spiritual organization or mission that might want us to do a retreat for them as well. So lots of different ways to put those packages and those different people together.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Suzanne. I think Morris has a question.
Hi, Suzanne. It's Morris Shea here. I'm back in Hawaii, but from Ottawa. Would somebody that you didn't know that was wanted to come, would you guys evaluate the leader before she came over? Would you do an evaluation on who she was and what type of things she was wanting to present?
Okay, if I understood the question correctly, would we do an evaluation of whoever might be leading the retreat before they come? And I'll get Suzanne's answer. I absolutely know mine. Okay, Suzanne?
I'm not quite clear I understand the question. We always did an evaluation of our retreats the last day of the retreat. People were given a survey asking them, you know, what worked, what perhaps didn't work for you. But I'm not sure what the reference to prior to the retreat means.
I think what Morris was saying, will we vet a leader that is leading a retreat before they come? Will we have a good idea of what it is they're bringing and doing?
Oh, absolutely. I think, absolutely. Yeah, we would want to have the right mix. Those individuals who are not necessarily a Unity minister or Unity individuals coming, but yes, people outside of that, I think we would want to vet that. And, you know, we have like Center for Spiritual Living and other organizations that are aligned in New Thought. Those groups, or, you know, that's a great question. I think that does make a lot of sense to do that and make sure it's in alignment. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. So, all right. Thank you, Morris. Ricky.
Hi, I just wanted to make a comment. I see another potential, actually really good, thriving market as the people that already live here in Hawaii. I think I know a lot of people that would pay money and dip into their pocket that live here already, that don't even have to pay airfare. I mean, I suppose the retreat costs might have to be lowered a little bit. I don't know, that would be up to Suzanne, but I see that as a burgeoning market to tap into as well.
Good. Did you hear that, Suzanne?
Local retreat. Is that correct?
Yes. And yes, local retreat, people from here who would like to be here for retreats. Ricky was saying that she sees that as a great market to reach. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Margie?
If I'll address Suzanne directly, one event planner to another. In addition to the basic outline of the treat, it occurs to me that we could offer an ancillary menu of other possibilities for, I presume some free time is going to be structured into the flow of any retreat program. It comes to mind a boat trip out to the sandbar. She's already got a Waikiki sail on here, I see. And I'm not thinking about the tourist stuff particularly, unless anyone in the congregation would volunteer. We used to have someone that had been for decades a docent at the Bishop Museum. So if we still do have someone in the congregation and they'd be willing to go along with a group that was doing a bishop tour as a private docent, wow, hallelujah. A wedding or a vow renewal could be an additional option. So a menu to select from as time is available. That could be spiritual, not, whatever.
Could you hear all that, Suzanne?
I really didn't catch most of it, but I think one of the things I heard was about extending the package of services so that if someone wanted to do a vow renewal or additional event, and that is a great idea. And yes, a lot of people even will extend they'll come early or they'll stay on, and they do ask about those additional things that they could do or book. But the rest of it I didn't hear.
And if I didn't say it out loud, it was in my head, this would be a menu of things that would have costs associated with it. A menu of additional activities that people could choose that would have costs available, attached to it, not included in the package price. Yeah.
Yes, for example, now I can hear you, by the way, really well.
Yeah, Thomas had the brilliant idea of me taking the phone up to the person. You know? Duh.
Yeah. For example, we will provide one wellness treatment. However, somebody might say, I'd like to have another two. You know, and other services, absolutely. It's a great way to extend the menu.
Okay.
Looks like we're near the end of hand.
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne. Thank you so much.
And from the board perspective, from the board perspective, I think the thing that's exciting is how you can control the risk in this. You can decide how many people you have for a minimum to break even, and if you don't meet it, then you cancel it, and so on and so forth. So you absolutely can control where you're going to go with this. So it seems like very exciting. And the idea of bringing other churches was exciting because that really means that they do the marketing. You go to Houston and say, would you like to come? And then they market Houston to get the 15 to 24 out of their 2,000. So that, I thought, sounded like a great way to get our feet wet. Yes. The People's Convention, I think we should target people who have horrid winters for January. You know, I think there are all kinds of strategies that we can do. Now, we are almost at 2 o'clock. We have not had any of the reports. I personally am willing to make the sacrifice of going last because I think people would rather hear from the senior minister who has been gone and from the treasurer about the financial status. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So why don't we have, Kathy, are you prepared to go now? Why don't we do that and give Tim a chance to rest his voice, and then we'll bring Tim up to do the senior minister report. Oh, good. Good. Then I'll be prepared to do, well, if I even have time to do that.
One question, are we going to talk about this in your report?
If you want to do it, that's fine.
Okay. Did everybody get 3 different pieces of paper? Oh, I'm sorry. Did everybody get 3 different pieces of paper? One that starts out assets, liabilities, and net assets. One that's actual versus budget. And the final one, status of action auction items. If you didn't, Marcia will make sure you get them. And so the first thing I want to do is say it's great to see all of you, and the 2 presentations that we have had, I think, were very well worth spending our time on today. The retreat idea is something that Reverend Tim has wanted to explore ever since he arrived, and I appreciate that. I think retreats are a fabulous idea, and it seems that Suzanne has put together a viable plan where we can kind of expand into a new function without having to have capital to invest on the front end, and that's really what we need at this point. And you will see why as we go over our financial statements. I want to give a special thank you to our very able assistant treasurer, Marcia Bethards, who has been preparing all of the reports, and I appreciate that very, very much. Back when we were amending the bylaws last year, I was kind of taking the lead in advocating that we have an assistant treasurer and an assistant secretary as officers of our board, and I'm glad that those proposals were included and approved, and now that we have Marcia on duty making sure that things get done even when I'm not getting them done, and I appreciate that very much. I want to just briefly go over these reports. I think most of you have been here at previous presentations where I kind of tried to explain the difference between the statements, the assets, liabilities, and net assets. Statement is what we often call a balance sheet, And then our revenues, expenses, and changes in net assets is what we often call a profit and loss statement. But these are the more sophisticated names for them. First of all, our assets, I won't spend a lot of time on. You can see that at the end of May, our unrestricted bank balance was just under $18,000, and our restricted funds amounted to about $78,000. And then there's one item that's an unusual one that maybe we haven't discussed before, where it says school receivable payable, and it has the parentheses around it showing that it's not an asset, it's actually a liability. And that's because the preschool being part of Unity Church of Hawaii is included on the same insurance policies. And when the insurance policies are taken out, some of the money, about half of it, is paid by the preschool. We put together a new plan with State Farm, who's our insurance agent this year, to spread our costs over the year so that we're only paying them month by month, which works out better from our financial standpoint. But from the preschool's accounting standpoint, they went ahead and paid for the whole year in advance. So that's why we are showing now a liability to the preschool amongst our assets. You do see the $465,819 in investments. That's in what we used to call Legacies of Aloha, but very soon it will be transferred over to the new Unity Endowment Foundation. And the only thing we're waiting on there is to have the tax-exempt status of the foundation approved. And hopefully that will be forthcoming very soon. I know Thomas has been working hard on getting the legal side of it taken care of. So we come down to total assets of $1,153,000, which includes the not the value of our property and equipment, but the cost of our property and equipment less accumulated depreciation. So we don't go have an appraisal done every year to see what our fabulous campus is worth. This is what we paid for it, minus an allocation of how much of that is used up every year. And of course, the biggest part of our assets are not depreciable because that's the land. And we don't use up the land. It will always be with us. As long as we don't sell it, it will be our land, and its value over the long run will go up. Our liabilities are fairly small, $31,000. And there is one liability on there that's relatively new, and that was a loan we received of originally $4,100 from Unity Worldwide Ministries in their HUGS program, Helping Unity Grow. And that's when we were in need of getting our rain gutters replaced, and we said, you know, we don't have all the money raised yet, and they were offering us a loan at 2% interest over 5 years, so we pay it back monthly on that basis. I will go on to the next page briefly. This is just the month of May, not any previous months. So the individual month of May, our total revenues were $39,996, or almost $40,000. Our total operating expenses were $40,966, so we were almost $1,000, you would say, in a deficit position, $970. That is, our expenses for the month of May were $970 more than our income for that period. Actually, that's good news, and because in the earlier months of this year, we were not that close. So the fact that we're within $1,000, I think, shows that the trajectory is going in the right direction, and we'll look forward to June being a very positive month. When you look at the reasons why we're not coming in with more income than expense every month, for the month of May, you can see that the biggest item is in donations. So that's the area that we need to work on. And the presentation that David made earlier about growing the congregation, I think, is the answer to increasing those donations. These are the total donations that come in each month from the services and from people who have automatic payments on their credit cards, or who make one-time payments on credit cards, or they have a donation sent in the mail, or sometimes last year we had some stock donations. And I believe, given the strong stock market, that we need to start promoting that idea for those who are investing in the stock market and have stock that has grown in value. That means that they can get a larger tax deduction. So even though they may have paid a small amount for that stock, it's worth more now, and they get to deduct more on their taxes if they choose to donate stock instead of writing a check or using a credit card. So we are set up with our brokerage firm to handle that transaction smoothly in case anyone wants to pursue that. And I would like for us to think of some other ways that we can promote stock donations as part of our prosperity consciousness in this congregation. Down at the bottom of the page, you see other revenues and other expenses, which is kind of the standard accounting terminology that's used for nonprofits. It means non-operating. But the way we use it in this ministry is those are our restricted revenues and our restricted expenses. So when we have donations that are for a certain purpose, such as we were having a celebration of Reverend Tim completing his first year with this ministry, and people were making donations as an honorarium in celebration of his first year. And so that is restricted income and is shown down there under other revenues. We do have some investment expenses that are shown, $3,290, most of which is related to the legal requirements of creating our new endowment foundation. And we have started to expend our Action Auction funds, $3,246 in the month of May, and that, if I remember right, was all related to the rain gutters. Now, there's another project ongoing, but I believe those expenses don't show up until June, and that's the acquisition of the water fountain, the drinking fountain, that many of us have been looking forward to. And can you tell me, Thomas, when that's going to actually be installed? Not an easy answer.
We planned on having it by today, but the problem that existed was one of the plugs down there. There are two plugs, one of which was for the water fountain, the other was for the lights. One of them is a little bit loose, and because we couldn't find where the circuit breaker is, pray for me. Tomorrow we're going to try doing it hot while it's still live and switch it over to a nice new circuit breaker, or a nice new GFI outlet that we can do, and then it'll be ready to be put in.
Thank you very much. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but that was something that we had strong support for in the Action Auction, and it was fully funded, and now it's due to Thomas and several other people pushing forward on it, it's going to happen. So I'm going to just take a brief diversion and mention the status of Action Auction items, this colorful sheet. You know, I don't create things quite as attractive as what Joanne does, and so I always like to look at the information sheets that she puts together because they're more colorful than mine. And it does show the check marks by the drinking fountains and the rain gutters, and that those items were fully funded. And so now I think it's time for us to look at the other items on the list and determine which ones we're really going to put the emphasis behind, and see if we can do a little bit more Action Auction, because that was a successful program during the last year. Finally, I won't go over it in detail, but the final sheet that you have that says actual versus budget January through May gives you the accumulation of the figures that we have presented each month to show us where we are at this point and compare it to what we had budgeted. And the one thing I will say about that, in our enthusiasm to be to have a prosperity consciousness, but also to be cautious, when the board adopted the budget, we included an item called prudent reserve. And you can see it on that actual versus budget account number 6860. And we had this plan of donations that by this point in the year would allow us to have $129,000 brought in donations, and we were going to have $9,850 of that set aside in our prudent reserve. The idea being that we wanted to plan for more revenue coming into the church, but we wanted to be prudent by not planning to spend it all immediately. So the answer, though, is that amount did not come in, and you can see $105,000 is what did come in donations. So we were not able to fund any of the prudent reserve yet, but we still have that in our budget, and we still have that in our plans. So at that point, knowing that it's late, I will stop my presentation and see if there are any questions. No questions. Thank you very much.
All right, just a quick report. Again, thank you for the support in going to the Unity People's Convention. And yeah, it's a wonderful convention, wonderful time, very powerful, powerful speakers, powerful connection, lots of great ideas in regards to ministry, which I think I can safely say were life-changing. And it was one of the most amazing conventions I've ever been to. At some point, I will show, probably some pictures or slides of some people who have Hawaii connections that I took pictures of, and including our Nigerian delegates. I think there were about 25 Nigerian delegates who applied to come, who tried to come. Only 4 of them got visas. The rest of it's a very, very difficult thing anymore to get visas. And so it was just a small group of the Nigerians, but we absolutely loved our connection with them. And I look forward to looking to practical ways in which we can build our connection with that sister congregation. I believe that a church that is mission-minded, that is focusing on their mission, which includes outreach, tends to be a church that is growing spiritually and numerically. So thank you again for the support to go to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to try and channel Evelyn Wood and do a speed reading contest here. Okay. This Friday coming up is the Welcome Home Potluck for Olga Lucia. Can I have an ole? Ole! There we go. And the committee said, let's have games and dancing. Little did I know till this morning that Olga Lucia is a dance instructor and has offered to teach us the merengue. So that will be part of it. So hooray for that. Another ole. Ole. Okay. We have the silent auction. We're starting to get more and more traction on the silent auction. More donations would be helpful. It's really a potpourri of items, from a stepladder to sneakers to a multifunction printer. And we've got lots of things to auction off. The action, she has covered the action auction, but I do want to give even more good news. The second item, Sunday Media, is so nearly funded. It was at 900, and I think we have 810. The even better news is that Sean Sweet thinks the price has dropped, and we may already have collected enough to do the upgrading of the live stream. Oh, so we even have the full 900. So hooray! The other thing that is interesting, which will unfold, is the ladies' restroom. Catherine Burton was the one who suggested it. She and Thomas have been negotiating, And Thomas thinks that he can do it for far less than we had anticipated. So we may be closer to funding that than we had realized. So hooray for that. I don't know. You can talk to Catherine Burton or Thomas afterwards. But it's the upstairs one, not the downstairs. The downstairs is beautiful. That's our art museum, remember? Okay. Okay. So the honorarium for Tim, as we mentioned, is going exceedingly well. We will keep pushing this through the month of July, and then at that point, that one will close off. Next week, we will publish the In Memory in honor of for Father's Day, and then I've been working with Kathy. After we do the Father's Day list, we're going to do one final list, really thanking the donors who have then thanked. So that will be the final list. And in that, I hope to pick up whatever misspellings that have come to my attention. So we'll put that blurb in the program. Not only that they will be honored, but if there are any misspellings, please get them to me so we can get that final list right. The membership badges have been going well. I put a sign-up sheet because people were beginning to say, how do I get a badge? Well, it's just simple. You just let me know and you get a badge. The AG letter, we have submitted everything, and we've gotten 2 very terse emails that said, received your stuff, we'll get back to you later. So that's where we are with that. And that's it. We're a little bit over, but with that, we are ready to do the closing prayer and the community song.
Yeah, so maybe we can join hands or elbows. We have a gap in here somewhere. Vamos. Okay, good. Oh, look at all the wonderful people who are gathered here. And we give thanks for all that is being done, all that is lifting up this wonderful community. We give thanks for all the gifts, time, dedication, commitment that is exhibited here. We give thanks for each one, their families, knowing all here are blessed. For all of this, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen. Then we're going to sing Weave. Weave, weave, weave us together. Weave us together in unity and love. Weave, weave, weave us together. Weave us together in unity and love. Hugs, handshakes, elbow bumps all around.